Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Hey, welcome back to the Bible for Busy People podcast. This is our week talking about Elijah. I'm Jen, and I'm a 90s kid, so I grew up on movies like Mighty Ducks, Little Rascals, and one of my personal favorites, The Sandlot. Have I mentioned this before? I probably have. In one scene, the main character, Scotty Smalls, is at his first camp out with new friends, and one of them, Hamilton or Ham Porter, asks him if he wants a s'more. S'more of what? Smalls replies. No. Ham says, do you want a s'more? Smalls doubles down. I haven't had anything yet, so how can I have some more of nothing? Ham responds with more exasperation than is probably necessary, but it's a hilarious moment. We all appreciate second helpings of food, right? Or other things that we love, which I suppose is what the name s'more implies. People love it so much they always want s'more. Today we're reading in 2 Kings chapter 2, starting in verse 1. It says, when the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha were on their way from Gilgal. Elijah said to Elisha, stay here, the Lord has sent me to Bethel. But Elisha said, as surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you. So they went down to Bethel. The company of the prophets at Bethel came out to Elijah and asked, do you know the Lord is going to take your master from you today? Yes, I know, Elisha replied, so be quiet. Then Elijah said to him, stay here, Elisha, the Lord has sent me to Jericho. And he replied, as surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you. So they went to Jericho. The company of the prophets at Jericho went up to Elisha and asked him, do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today? Yes, I know, he replied, so be quiet. Then Elijah said to him, stay here, the Lord has sent me to the Jordan. And he replied, as surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you. So the two of them walked on. 50 men from the company of the prophets went and stood at a distance facing the place where Elijah and Elisha had stopped at the Jordan. Elijah took his cloak, rolled it up, and struck the water with it. The water divided to the right and to the left, and the two of them crossed over on dry ground. When they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, tell me, what can I do for you before I am taken from you? Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit, Elisha replied. You have asked a difficult thing, Elijah said, yet if you see me when I am taken from you, it will be yours. Otherwise, it will not. As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them. And Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha saw this and cried out, my father, the chariots and horsemen of Israel. And Elisha saw him no more. Then he took hold of his garment and tore it in two. Elisha then picked up Elijah's cloak that had fallen from him and went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. He took the cloak that had fallen from Elijah and struck the water with it. Where now is the Lord, the God of Elijah? He asked. When he struck the water, it divided to the right and to the left, and he crossed over. This is such a fascinating passage, and if you don't think so, that's okay. There's a lot more here than what you see on the surface. First of all, there's so much repetition to the point that it feels odd, but repetition tells us to pay attention. 3 times Elijah tells Elisha to stay behind, and 3 times Elisha refuses. On the Working Preacher blog, Jason Biasi explains that there is a practice in Judaism by the rabbi to send away a convert 3 times, basically telling them to go find something easier to follow because Judaism is challenging. If you return 3 times, you are accepted as a convert. The situation here goes along with that practice. The number 3 in the scriptures is symbolic of completion, perfection, and fulfillment of God's purpose. The Trinity, God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit is an example of this. There are 3 patriarchs of Israel, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Jesus' ministry lasted 3 years. Biasi also points out that in this story, Elijah and Elisha are taking a reverse journey out of the Promised Land, visiting 3 cities, Gilgal, Bethel, and Jericho, that were all conquered by Israel on their way to the Promised Land, only backwards. Biasi says that this is an example of Israel rolling back or backtracking on their covenant with God. And it's Elijah's way of blasting them for it, quote unquote. His quote, not mine. It even ends with Elijah separating the Jordan River in a way similar to the Red Sea parting and the crossing of Moses and the Israelites. Did you catch that? So why did the prophets and Elisha have the same conversation twice and then the prophets watch them creepily from a distance later? I don't know. I can only think that the repetition is important to the story. It makes it memorable, and that potentially these people were watching Elijah's journey and understand his meaning of Israel moving backwards. Perhaps he was imparting his mission onto them before he went, just like he did with Elisha. Also, the number 50 represents completion leading to a new beginning, freedom following bondage, and the outpouring of the Spirit after faithful waiting, according to Pastor Jason Elder in his blog. Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit. This one small phrase from Elisha actually means a whole lot. Elisha was citing Mosaic law, which called the firstborn inheritance a double portion. He was basically calling Elijah father and asking for the benefits of that, like being next in line of succession to be a prophet like he was, and to have what he needed to continue Elijah's, really God's, purpose in restoring Israel. But I do think there's also something there of him wanting to receive that same authority and power that Elijah had, and these weren't Elijah's to give. This is a bold request, and Bayasi notes that sometimes our prayers should be bigger than what we let them be, something that even takes God by surprise. He notes that even Jesus said we would do greater things than him. How bold are we in our prayers? How much do we expect of God? How much do we ask? I attended a conference recently where a speaker said that her prayer contained the question, "What are you going to do about it, God?" And then came a chariot of fire. Again, remember when Elijah asked God to take his life? Elijah never died. Maybe there's more depth to this, or maybe it's just that God has a sense of humor, but this feels significant. Elisha tore his own cloak after Elijah went, and then he picked up Elijah's. This is a symbolic passing of the torch, and the fact that when he hit the waters of the Jordan, they separated as they did for Elijah, that signifies that Elisha did in fact receive that double portion of the Spirit. And what he had said there was a double portion is almost like saying a second helping. He wants to be full of the Spirit. So that kind of links back to what we talked about at the beginning. There is a lot here, and remember that the Bible is full of literary genres and contains so many stories that make for effective memorization and retelling. When elements seem unusual, that's kind of the point, to show the constancy of God's purpose moving forward, God's faithfulness, and the presence of God with us. So how bold are your prayers? Who would you want to receive a double portion or a second helping of Spirit from? And what about this story stands out to you? Thanks for chatting with me about Elijah this week. I've had fun digging into this topic. Let's talk again next week. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to assume two things about you. First of all, that you're a busy person, and second, that you are in need of a restful break. Cannon Beach Conference Center is the place for a beautiful coastal retreat. Whether it's one of their enriching conferences or your own church or ministry event, you can find out more at 800-745-1546 or visit cbcc.net. Thank you to Cannon Beach Conference Center for sponsoring the Bible for Busy People.
Thank you for listening to The Bible for Busy People. If you need prayer or want to go deeper in your faith, visit our show notes. Will you take a moment to share with a friend and leave a review? It helps the Bible get into even more people's minds and hearts. Find more podcasts that will recharge you at purposely.com.